I got the notification.
Awesome. We're good to go, Kanika. Yeah. So talk to us about how did you get into sales?
Like I was saying that like there was an accidental prime minister. I think I was an accidental salesperson. So I've always been in retail, about 17 odd years now. Started back in 2005. And right after college, got into a retail organization. Future Group was my first one. And that also was like, I somehow liked retail. And at that time, nobody was doing retail. Retail meant like you couldn't find another job, therefore you get into retail. That's what it meant at that time. But anyway, I somehow wanted to get into it. That was a fascination because of Decathlon. Decathlon was not even in India at the time. And these guys were sourcing from India. So I had my internship during my MBA days at Decathlon. And I loved what they were doing. So somehow I just wanted to get into retail. There were only two companies, Shoppers Stop and Future Group at that time. By the way, guys, I tend to speak too fast sometimes. So stop me, tell me, we can't understand you. You're like going at a crazy speed. So stop. So just raise your hands, do some buzzer, do something. Just tell me I'm too fast. So that's a disclaimer there. Anyway, coming back to those days, that's how I got into retail. And I did that for a long time. And then when I was at Unilever on the retail arm of Unilever, which is largely Lakme, Quality Walls, Brew, they have the retail chains, including salons, cafes, that kind of stuff. I used to work with this vendor called Capillary Technologies for our CRM. And for some reason, I had to move to Delhi. At that time, my husband was moving to Delhi for a role with Walmart. He's also a retailer. And I had to move, and Unilever could not give me an internal transfer at that time. So that's when I took up the role with Capillary directly, because these guys, the moment they found out that I'm leaving Unilever, we were already working together I was already their client. So they kind of wanted me to come on board and set up the customer success for Capillary. The company was only 4 years old at the time. And while I got into customer success, within I think about 6-8 months, I got into sales. My CEO at that time realized that I'm probably very vocal and I shouldn't be just talking to customers who are already sold. I should probably be selling because I talk a lot. And that's probably the first trait that somebody picks up on the moment they say that somebody needs to get into sales. So they probably need to talk a lot, because eventually that's what you do, right? It's just like yap. So I got into sales. That's exactly how I got into sales. And from there on, as they say, it's been a journey. I spent about 6 odd years with Capillary. Then after that, I started my own company, which of course is like all sorts of selling when you're starting a company. You're not just selling a product, you're actually selling yourself, you're selling your company to XYZ. You're selling all the time. You're selling something or the other. Even when you're hiring, you're selling your company to the prospective employees to join you and why they should be joining you and not whoever else is on their mind, whoever else is picking them up. So it has always been a candidates market ever since I started working. I think people haven't had a dearth of jobs. It's always the employers who are kind of struggling finding jobs, especially in sales. So it came like so I became like a default seller. And then I ended up joining Increff because I had to shut down my startup thanks to COVID. And I knew Rajul. So that's how I came on board Increff. And but selling honestly was purely accidental. And I realized after getting into sales that I absolutely love it. This is probably, sometimes when you feel like you're built to do something, like, okay, this is what I was born to do. So that was the eureka moment I had when I started doing sales for Capillary. This was good 10 years back now, but that's how I got into it. So I don't know if you got the answer or not. You're still on the wall, godlike.
God sees and understands everything. Yeah,
Awesome.
It was interesting. So, but it must have been quite a transition, right, to move from retail to technology.
It was. Having said that, I think the best part was the domain was the same. So when I got into Capillary, Capillary was selling to retailers. So I spoke the language. So since I had been a retailer myself all my life until then, it was very easy to transition in that sense that, I didn't really have to worry about what do I tell my customers. I simply would tell them what I wanted to hear when I was on the other side of the table. And people bought it because they understood that I understand their pain points. I understand where they are coming from. What is it that they want to solve for that matter. So life was not that difficult. Having said that, if from the perspective of role in itself, yes, it was very different. I was always doing very ops heavy, merchandising heavy kind of a role, very retail specific roles. And then suddenly I'm forever on the road. Because the moment you get into sales, suddenly your car becomes your best friend, that literally becomes your house, or probably beyond the car, it's the next plane. So much so that air hostesses start recognizing you, and they start saying hi to you and start welcoming you back to the airline because they know that you have been like there. You were there this morning, you were there yesterday, you were there last week. So what else do they do? So that's how it is. So in fact, my travel probably started a lot more thanks to sales, or vice versa. In fact, I sometimes try to figure it out. Did I get into sales because I love travel, or did I start loving travel because I got into sales? So it's one of the two. I'm not able to find the relationship there. Which one came before? It's taken the next story for me. But they both kind of happen simultaneously.
Interesting. So I've heard this thing about the travel bug.
Okay.
How many countries have you visited till now?
58 so far.
Okay, last I heard it was 51.
Okay, it was 57 until a month back. I added the 58th after a gap of good 2 years since the COVID hit. So I happened to go to Canada, which I hadn't gone to before. So 58 unique countries so far.
That's quite something. So do you have like a 3-square notebook for a passport?
So I'm actually quite smart. So what I do is I try and convince the officials at when you're at the immigration desk and when you're like kind of just checking out and all that, I try and convince them to put a stamp on an already stamped page. I have my best smile, my best sales smile on there. And I tell them, can you please stamp an already stamped page so that I don't really consume my pages too fast. In fact, if you look at my first passport, it has like probably 20 stamps on each page because I didn't want to renew my passport too soon.
Wow.
So it's quite crazy. And I actually managed to convince most of them also. So this started happening when I was like left with 2 pages on my first passport. And I knew that if I'm left with like only 1 page or if there's 1 stamp on one of those, I can't get any more visas and I can't like travel unless I renew the passport. So I still had like good 3-4 years to renew the passport in terms of the timeline. But because I had too many stamps, the booklet was getting full. So I started doing this, and then most people obliged until one guy this was Dubai. He said no, and he just like stamped on a fresh page, and that's when I had to renew my passport.
Oh shucks.
But how long could I do this? I did this for a very long time, honestly, Sridhar.
So you're a stamp collector of a different kind, I guess.
You can say that.
So talk about your Capillary and then the transition to Increff, because they kind of they have slightly different sales motions, right?
They do. Actually, yes, you're right. They have very different sales motions in the sense that they're selling to different kinds of customers. Okay. So both companies are vertical SaaS. Both companies are largely trying to sell to retail. And that's why both of them are pretty much my domain. Since I have been a retailer all my life, I preferred being in my domain. Even though it was sales, I kind of made a conscious effort not to go out of retail sales. Wherein a retailer is always going to be my customer because I understand that domain, I understand that industry. I understand the language people speak there. So that's what I wanted to do. Now, within the particular domain also, there are multiple functions. For example, Capillary sells to marketeers. A retail marketer, a marketing head or a CMO in a retail is what a Capillary would sell to, whereas Increff would sell to either a chief merchandising officer or a chief supply chain head or something like that. So that way, the personas you sell to is different. But other than that, it's largely enterprise SaaS. Ticket sizes are quite similar. The way Capillary started selling and the way Increff is selling now are relatively similar. If you look at the journey standpoint, from the journey standpoint, so what I mean by that is Capillary is about 12 odd years old now, 13 odd years old now. Increff is about 6 odd years old. So when probably Capillary was 6 years old, we were doing similar stuff that what we are doing now. The only difference being we were very conscious in Capillary days about, rather we were not very conscious about who do we sell to. We were not really choosing our customers. So whatever came our way, we kind of just like tried and close that deal. Whereas here at Increff, we're a bit picky. We try and choose who do we sell to because we want to take a certain direction and we want to see that at the end of the day, we want to have let's say 100 customers, but those 100 customers are going to be the customers who are going to be to die for. I wouldn't trade them for a different set of 100 customers or even 1,000 customers for that matter, because they pay you well. They are good customers to have in terms of your product development also. You eventually want to make sure that they are actually asking for the right products or right features in your product so that your product is getting enhanced the right way to actually become more useful for the other companies in the same domain also. Whereas there are certain customers who are just paying you to get certain things done, which may not be adding a lot of value to you as a company. So here at Increff, we make a conscious choice to actually get more and more customers who we think will actually add value to us also as a customer, as a company, and not just the other way around. Does it make sense, guys?
Yeah, you're basically, it seems like you're basically making the entire sales and customer relationship something like a two-way street.
Yeah.
Rather than being like a vendor being beholden to the customer.
Absolutely. And that's probably one thing that we used to do a lot in Capillary, but we don't do that in Increff, and that's a conscious choice. I mean, we are okay to grow relatively slower. I mean, if it means that I have to probably leave 10%, 15% revenue on the table and walk off and say that this is not the customer I want to have, so be it. That's okay. But then we pick and choose, and we say that I choose to leave these guys off my customer logo table, and that's fine.
So tell me this it's a very non-intuitive mindset to have for a salesperson, right? Leaving money on the table.
It is.
How did you cultivate that mindset? Because it's, I mean, I think personally, I think it's an important one to have.
Yeah.
To say, while the color of all money is green, not all money is necessarily equal quality. So true. It's an important perspective. So what did it take for you and the team around you to kind of back this mindset? It would have come over time, right?
So absolutely. In fact, one thing we do very differently here at Increff is we are extremely collaborative in nature. So sales teams, sales guys, invariably across the world, across organizations, are loners. They are ICs in the true sense of the word. They are individual contributors, and that's how they like to work. They are, plus they're very possessive also. My deal, my customer, my lead, my prospect, everything is like mine. There's nothing which is like my company's. Everything is like mine. Here we try to kind of just move away from that culture right on day one. So when somebody joins us, we literally get them to unlearn some of these learnings people have had over their entire sales careers. And we have had people, for example, in my team, we have people who have been selling for 20 years plus. And after that, they joined Increff. And getting those people to understand that it's not just about money on the table, like you said, right? I mean, it needs to be the money that can grow, that makes sense to us, the kind of money we actually want on the table. So it took a while getting that done. And of course, we have a very, very intensive training culture, which means every single week we have 2 training sessions for the entire sales team. It's a mandate. It doesn't matter whether you've been selling within Increff for the last 5 years. You know everything there is to know about our products, our services, what happens, what doesn't happen, doesn't matter. You're still getting trained over and over again. And you know what that does? That basically brings everybody on the same page and kind of reduces the impact of the IC mindset that a salesperson by default has. And they start working like a team. Another thing that we did differently at Increff is we don't have any individual sales targets. So it's not like Sridhar doesn't have a sales target. We as a team, as a room, we have a target. Wow. And we all try and hit it together. So it's like we actually have salespeople helping each other on deals because they know that if my colleague hits the target or closes a deal, eventually it goes into the pool. It's not like one person hitting the target. It's like we all hitting the target. And the incentives are linked to that. Incentives are not linked to one person closing X number of deals. Because there are incentives in terms of you probably get a better appraisal if you've closed more deals than the other person, but that's about it. Your actual variable and incentive, it totally depends on what the team is doing overall. So the whole collaboration comes in from there.
Wow. That's like the first part of your company's name.
Incredible. Yeah,
seriously. That's awesome.
By the way, those who don't know, Increff stands for incredible efficiency.
It's very cool. So one of the things I thought will be good to kind of hear about from you is, I was trying to, get familiar with who you are as a person before this call, right? And one word that kept standing out is curiosity.
I can imagine why.
Right. So talk about that. I mean, many of these things, like, transitioning from retail to technology sales, being focused on vertical, saying no to some kind of money, bringing group targets, things like that, those all would have, taken some doing. They all don't come overnight, right? They all do, they have to be deliberately cultivated. So talk about how has curiosity kind of enabled you?
Ultimately, I think it's all about curiosity at the end of the day for everything. It's not, in my mind, it's nothing else. It's like we're all, whatever stage we are at at any given point in time in life, we are a certain kind of person. And then the only way to go from there is up. Nobody can ever go down from wherever we are, simply because you can never really become a worse person. You will only gain more knowledge. You cannot like let go of knowledge, right? Whatever you learned, whatever you imbibed, whatever you inherited, whatever you absorbed, whatever you did, it's only adding on. You cannot subtract knowledge. I mean, even if you share, it doesn't subtract, right? I mean, it's a common fact. You share your knowledge with someone, it doesn't like go down or anything.
Yes.
So what happens is, eventually, if you're a curious person by default, for example, I know for a fact that I'm curious about like way too many things. If you look at my reading list also, the kind of eclectic mix I have in my reading list, it's quite crazy. I'll read anything from philosophy to business to horticulture to God knows what all. It's a very crazy mix, and simply because I'm always curious about how the world works, how anything works for that matter. What is a person thinking? Why is anybody doing X, Y, Z and not ABC? So it always results in learning something. And I think that's one quality about me, or I think about a lot of salespeople for that matter, Sridhar, that kind of helps them navigate from A to Z in general, because you already at a certain point, and then you realize that you want to know more about something else, and therefore you like experimenting with that and like, oh, let me just go and find out how does that work. And therefore you decide that either you like it or you hate it, or somewhere in the middle. And then you say, do you want to do more of it? And if yes, then how do you do more of it? And then you kind of spiral from there. But eventually, at the heart of all of it is curiosity. In fact, probably true for most of you guys also, right? I mean, how did you land your first jobs? Why did you go to college, to whichever school you went to? Whatever you did for education, eventually it was all curiosity, right? What would a BTech feel like, for example? What would an MBA feel like? Oh, my so-and-so friend went to that school, that college. I wonder how that feels like.
Shall we do a quick detour and do like a quick Q&A with the audience?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I tend to drag on.
That's fine. Now, I want to ask everyone to post one offbeat or unique thing that you pursue as a hobby or as an interest or something on the chat window. Let's see what people come up with. Like we have somebody with like, who has visited 58 countries. He's a stamp collector on the passport and reads eclectic stuff. Let's see what others come up with. Folks, go for it.
No decision.
Wow, that's awesome.
I totally like it.
Nice. Okay, played rugby. Product design.
Wow.
Yeah, we have 20 people. Okay. Started a farming. Yes. The 3-figure deal.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out whether that's real farming, like farming out there, farming in the sales farming word.
Not hunting farming. He does real farming, vegetarian farming.
Real farming.
Oh, the real farming. Okay. To a sales guy, farming means farm the account.
Pick up bounce. Okay. Oh yeah, cajon.
Interesting.
Other people with better health. Okay. Very cool.
Wow. Like coffee. Okay, that's a new one.
Likes coffee. Okay. Wow, that's nice. I love that.
Amazing.
Foster dogs is awesome. Okay, because you're collecting stamps, Ananya wants to collect coins. Like this is what we have heard in college ragging. What's your hobby? Stamp collection, coin collection. Slack over teams.
Slack over teams is very interesting. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
Ananya, this is
No,
cool.
Ananya, that's not what Sridhar meant, I'm sure. Awesome. Do we have any more, guys? Metro over
Metro
cabs.
cab.
Badrinath is at it. Slack over teams, metro over cabs.
Very cool. All right. So, Kanika, I want to switch gears slightly.
Sure.
And let's talk about people who want to get into sales.
Yeah.
Right. One part is, of course, who they are as a person. Sometimes, your character and personality just gets attracted to sales and you land there. But it's also potentially an extremely interesting career option for people today.
Yes, it is.
Right. When I think about it, I look at it and say, in any profession, when technology, tools, and data and process mature, the profession is worthy of having its own career path.
Absolutely.
So talk about what would it take for somebody getting into the industry. I mean, many of these people are already in sales, but I'm sure if you pick anyone, they have like 5-10 other people in their network who are looking to break into the industry or looking for jobs or looking for openings and stuff like that. So it will start percolating. What you share here will percolate with other people beyond the folks here. So talk about what does it take for somebody to get into sales, and I have some more pointed questions some folks have sent to me. We'll pursue with that.
See, honestly, the only thing that it takes to get into sales is having an open mind. And the reason I say that is sales is one profession wherein you need to face rejection every single day. There's just no denying that. Every single day you need to face rejection. And it's not like any other profession, you probably don't need to be even close to what sales needs to face rejection for. It's quite crazy. The number of times you hear a no, no matter what kind of sales, even if you're talking about large enterprise sales like what we do, for example, you still need to hear no's very, very often. And it's extremely common. So as long as you're okay with that, as long as that's not a problem, that's okay. Having said that, on the other side of the table, why should somebody be in sales? I mean, there are a lot of people out there who I know got into sales by default simply because they couldn't find anything else to do. Let's be practical. I mean, no other reason. I couldn't get any other job, therefore I'm in sales. And I don't want to do it. I don't like doing it, but I'm in sales because I couldn't find any other jobs. That's quite a few people, quite a few such stories I've heard there. But the perks of being in sales, and especially if you're good at it, are crazy. Crazy is the word. I mean, for sure, in any organization, at least in tech, sales guys are the highest paid guys. No debates, no questions asked. The variables incentives are absolutely crazy for most. In fact, there are kickers, there are bonuses, there's a lot of stuff. The world is fancy out there. Any of you guys who like traveling, I'm sure there's no better profession for sure. You're forever out meeting customers, whether it's domestically, internationally, doesn't matter. You're forever out. In fact, the number of flights I used to take before COVID hit in a year would probably parallel any airline crew. It was quite crazy. And that's how it is. There's just too many perks. It's just that you need to actually put your mind to it that you really want to do it. And the reason that you would want to do it is you actually want to solve problems for people. That's one thing that sales guys do, which most people don't even realize. You're not actually selling your product. Whatever it is that you're selling, that product or that service eventually is of use to someone. And how are you actually making sure that that use is taken care of? You're solving whatever problem your end customer is facing. That's what sales is all about. And when the customer actually comes back and tells you that, look, I used it in so and so way, and this helped me achieve X, Y, Z, it's a beautiful feeling of gratification. You feel like, okay, I know I got a fancy car out of the money I got out of whatever you guys paid my company anyway. But you telling me that this was super useful to you as a company, as an individual, it's like probably double the happiness. So it's quite amazing, the feeling. So that's probably the biggest reason why would you want to get into sales.
Interesting. So the way in which sales career paths are evolving is also getting a little more specialized, right? So there are people who are doing SDR, BDR, more top of the funnel, and people who are more bottom of the funnel, account executive and stuff.
Yeah.
How have you seen the evolution, and how have you structured or thought about your team itself? Let's start from there.
So interestingly, the obvious movement up from a SDR, BDR kind of a role is usually a sales executive, director, SaaS manager, whatever titles, terms people use. It's usually the standard progression path that people tend to choose. And the reason is again obvious, because you've already done the harder work of sales. You already tried knocking on doors so much by now that it's time to actually see it to closure and start looking at the fruit of that closure also, right? The satisfaction I'm talking about, that starts coming in only after you moved into a hardcore sales role, not just at a SDR, BDR role. So that's very obvious. In fact, Sridhar, to answer your earlier question, that's how we are also structured. We have an inside sales team, bunch of SDRs who do outbound largely and take care of a lot of inbound traffic also for our customers. And one of the people who was, in fact, one of the first SDRs we had about a year and a half back in the company is an AE now and is doing fantastically well. She progressed from booking meetings for the sales directors to actually getting meetings for herself and closing them, and actually seeing the benefits of not just making big incentives, but also, like I was saying, the feeling the satisfaction of actually closing a deal and feeling the rush of a customer telling her that, look, this helped. And so it's a natural progression for sure. And in fact, this again has not just a account director or a sales director level, eventually it goes beyond that, right? So the natural progression from sales is also marketing, though very different skill sets. But a lot of people eventually need to learn, how do you reach your customer other than knocking the door yourself? Is there an other way to try and figure it out? I'm sure all of you have had marketing teams you worked with, you've licensed with, you have had something or the other to do with. And usually marketing teams tend to be a black box in a lot of companies because you don't know what they do. You don't know how things function. I mean, is there an ad running on Google for us? If it is, who's watching it? I don't see any ads for my company ever on Google. Or why do we keep sending these random posts on LinkedIn or whatever keeps happening there? So if you're actually able to combine the two, because the objective of the two functions is largely the same. You're eventually trying to reach the customer in the best possible way. And that's another natural progression from an SDR, BDR kind of a role. Get into marketing, get into the whole inbound customer reach outs. Marketing eventually is all inbound, right? You try to get the customer to knock on your door rather than you knocking on their door. So that's also very interesting. And again, it has a lot of, because of the whole MarTech stack that is out there these days, it's a kind of a technical field now, but that's also fun. I mean, if technology interests a sales guy, you couldn't have a better career transition or a career progression than getting into a marketing role. So,
funny you say that. I just saw one of the SDRs at Capillary has, just joined back the company after completing a previous temporary assignment into marketing operations, like yesterday. So
okay, interesting.
Yeah. So okay, team building, hiring talent. What are some of those non-negotiables that you have when hiring the team?
We have only one, actually two non-negotiable while hiring the team. One, of course, we're a very data-centric team in general. I think it probably flows from top down again. Now we believe in data like it's the Bible. It is, but we believe it also. So what happens is when we're hiring, we have a sort of a test, which is both a cognitive as well as a behavioral personality test kind of a thingy. And that's a elimination round. It's not like if you're not the right fit in terms of your personality type or a certain cognitive score, then you don't really move on. There's no interview. It's not like whatever you score on the test, you still get an interview. You don't. It's like as simple as that. That's a non-negotiable thing. And again, what has helped us because of that is, what that has helped us do is, it has helped us narrow down the team to a certain kind of people who we wanted. For example, one thing is very, very clear. We know for a fact that we only hire smart people. And for us, smart means XYZ for ABC roles. And that's straightforward, clear. And the reason is that smart people talk more easily to other smart people. And since we already have a lot of smart people in the company, it's just easier to get more smart people on. We don't want to have somebody who we really have to take a long time to explain things, for example. So that mix is taken care of. And again, personality type wise also, it's easier to have a similar lot, not the same personality types again, people who would basically get along well with each other. Therefore, we'll probably have a healthier culture at work. We'll have lesser friction. So we kind of literally put it down to science. We've said that these kind of people work well together in these teams. Therefore, you should hire these kind of people together. That's what we do. And the second thing that again probably comes in from the first one itself is cultural fit. If we see that the person who we are hiring for this team quite non-intuitively is, let's say if a person is extremely individualistic, probably wouldn't be a good fit for our team because of the way we are structured. Like I said, right, we don't really have any individual targets. Also, we've actually had sales guys come back and say that I won't join you if I won't have a target and an individual incentive. What if the next guy in my team is pulling me down? What if I do my 100% and the next guy is only giving 50%? Therefore, I'm not going to make my money. We've had those people and we get it that those kind of people are probably not a good fit for us because we work as a team. We work in a very collaborative environment and we want to have a cultural fit. So these two are non-negotiable either in my mind. I mean, people have to have a fit and you need to be able to work together in the group of, we have about 200 plus team now, and we need to be able to talk to each other. And if we are all able to talk to each other, we basically will be at a same page on where we want to take the company. What is that peak we're all heading towards? And since that everybody is aligned to the peak, the chances of us actually hitting that peak are many, many times higher.
That's so. It sounds to me there's a lot of first principle thinking that has gone in how you want to build team.
Yeah.
How did this happen by accident?
No, not at all. In fact, when we started off, when Increff started, we built the policies of what makes sense. For example, one of our KRAs, it's an actual KRA which we get reviewed on, is being happy. It's an actual KRA. So people rate each other. We have a 360-degree review. People rate each other on being happy. If you're not happy doing what you're doing as a company, as an individual, then the company probably is not heading in a healthy direction. We're probably not going to be happy as a company. So you're absolutely right in that sense, Sridhar. A lot of first principles. We have a lot of things we were very clear about. What is it that you're building the company for? What is the end goal? Is it to actually go out for that fancy IPO someday and then walk out of here with bags full of money in our hands? And is that the end goal of creating this company? It's not. We all decided we all want to create this company because we want to achieve something for retail tech that nobody else has achieved so far and be happy while doing it. So a lot of focus on making sure that we have a lot of work-life balance in spite of working in different time zones, in spite of having a little too much to do at all times. We just make sure that people are actually happy.
Very nice. Is that what explains the very low attrition at Increff?
I think it does.
Okay.
In fact,
awesome.
Very low. We have negligible attrition in Increff. That's it. Next thing, I don't want anybody leaving us. But yeah, people don't. They just love being here.
It's very nice. No, this is fantastic to actually hear. It speaks to a lot of how you build teams, how you build great culture, and how you make sure that people continue to be excited coming to work every day, right? So I think that's fantastic. So there was this other, lots of people are getting into sales nowadays, and a large portion of at least SaaS companies, which is primarily the area of interest for most of us in the community, right?
Yeah.
Is that the market's going to be in North America or Western Europe or Southeast Asia or something like that?
Yeah.
Right. Of course, there are folks with a lot of India-only focus.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, when you think about people working on geographies, do you think about the same person working on multiple geographies, or how do you think about like them working with the culture fit of geography they are selling into?
So it depends on the stage a company is at this point in time, Sridhar. So for example, if you're a much younger company, you're at a relatively earlier stage in terms of your whole journey, then probably you might have to have people who are working on multiple geographies at the same time, because you really don't have those many people to actually have them segregated at a geography level. You probably have, I don't know, 2 SDRs, 2 salespeople, whatever. One person doing Google ads. It's a tiny team, so you literally have everybody working on different time zones, especially in sales. So it's possible. For example, in the earlier days, I know for a fact that I have had 5 a.m. Australia calls and then 9:30 p.m. US calls. You really can't do much about them same day, so it happens. But as you grow, you have the luxury of getting more people on board and then segregating them geographically, because again, that's what it makes more sense. Again, not just from the time zone perspective, but also from the perspective of getting to know a region better, getting to know a geography better. Somebody who's aligned to North America, for that matter, is probably going to know a lot more about North America than any other region in the world, simply because of the conversation that person is having with the people there. And the other thing that it does, it opens up avenues for people to move. In fact, we again have a super clear policy that we would move people first before we hire internationally, and that's what we're doing.
When you say you move, you will hire them in the geography you want them, or you will
no. So people who are already here working with us in India, we're moving them to various geographies. For example, I need somebody in North America now. I would rather move an existing sales director who's in India with me for the last 2 years to US than hire somebody in US. It's a slightly more longer journey in terms of opening doors in that geography. I get that. Having said that, us being vertical SaaS, it's more important for us to know the product well and the domain better than actually knowing people in the geography. That's probably relatively easier for a company in our domain, because we're vertical SaaS and deep domain.
Interesting.
So, that's
is this an inspiration? Is this an inspiration from Capillary, or you felt?
Actually, it is. Capillary also did the same thing. We moved a lot of people from India to various geographies because same learning. Though Capillary is vertical SaaS, not deep tech. In spite of that, the learning curve. If I had to hire a salesperson, let's say in US, I know I don't have to teach them sales. I know I don't have to tell them how to open doors. They probably already know a bunch of people in my industry, and that's why I hired them. They probably already have a kind of a contact book. But then teaching them what is it that I do, and therefore this is what you need to go and communicate to your customer, takes longer. Whereas telling somebody who already knows what I do that, look, this is how North American market works. This is how you need to tweak your communication to this person versus what you were doing in India. It's easier.
Okay, so you're basically erring on the side of, if you have domain knowledge, I can teach you the sales skills or communication skills.
Sales, region-specific sales. You're already doing sales in India, for example. You're already a sales guy in India. So it's easier for me to actually just tell you what are the nuances you need to be careful about in a different geography. What is it that you need to know about the region, the geography? Is there something, does the industry work differently in that region versus the way it worked in India, for example? So therefore, do I need to, let's say you were selling to a CIO so far, and suddenly you only have to go to a chief supply chain officer now. CIO doesn't buy these products in, let's say, whatever geography you're selling in. So those nuances come into picture, but that's also learning, right? And that's also learning not just for the salesperson, but also for the company. Because most of us also don't know that. So we may not generally how a market works. For example, since I've sold in literally all markets across the world, I know what makes sense for a person of a certain cultural origin. But will that change the way the particular industry works in that geography? May or may not be true.
Got it. So there's a lot of nuance in each geography, each domain and stuff like that.
Which is why it's easier to have somebody who already knows a domain well, who already knows a product well. All you need to know is know the geography a little better. That's all.
Got it. And because you've anyway hired smart people who are used to working in the team, they are able to learn faster in a new geography. And
on the nail, Sridhar.
Awesome. The story comes together. Wonderful.
Yes.
That's nice. So how are you doing on time? I know we had to wrap up at 6:45. Do you have 5-10 more minutes to go?
I do. I'm okay. I blocked the hour.
Okay, great. I wanted to open up to the audience. Everyone's been like very silent. I want to make sure that
I'm
Lots of people have
hoping
switched off
only
the
silent and
camera.
not sleepy. Like I said, I tend to drag on.
So I know Akilan had a few questions. In the meanwhile, other people, if you have questions, do you want to start pasting on the chat window, or if you raise your hand, I'll bring you on the. I mean, unmute and go ahead with this thing. So there was this other question: technology bubble bursting.
Yeah.
What's your take on SaaS?
Quite the opposite, actually. There's no bubble. It's not bursting. In fact, Indian SaaS is here to stay. Again, I'm talking from experience, and I'm talking from my very recent conversations with a lot of people across the world. In fact, the sentiment across the world now is if you have to buy tech, then you have to buy it from an Indian company. Nobody does it like the Indians do. So people sitting in this room, if you're selling to literally any geography around the world, most geographies started recognizing this, that nobody does it better than. In fact, we were doing very interesting research, and we figured out that a lot of CTOs and CIOs in the US are Indian origin by default. So, and of course, it's definitely easier to sell to an Indian origin person if you're an Indian origin person yourself. So they understand where you're coming from. Plus, you don't really have to start from A. They already at like, I don't know, C, D, E, and that's where you start off and you just hit it off. You just say that, look, I know you already know this. So let's just kind of start from there rather than starting from A. So that is just easier. And people have kind of just agreed to this now, that it's easier to buy Indian tech than paying, I don't know, 10 times the price for, let's say, an American tech or a German tech or a Japanese tech, and actually get a better quality and not just the price. A lot of our technology companies, especially SaaS reader, these days are killing it simply because of the product quality. It's not the price anymore. It used to be the price when they were the kings of the service world, right? When it was still the era of Infosys of the world, knowing India being known for Infosys and likes, and people who are like in services. Now it's product, now it's tech. So SaaS is out there and people have started recognizing it.
That's awesome. So I'll share one small thing of how I've seen the world evolve, right? So I used to be at Zoho many years ago. And at that time, the competition was Infosys.
Yeah.
Okay. After Zoho came the first wave of SaaS companies, right? There's Freshworks, Chargebee, etc., which were selling primarily to SMB. And the pricing was on the lower side, like $5, $10, $20, $30 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now the new and that world was predominantly inbound and marketing and display and digital and Facebook, Google and all that stuff, right? That was the GTM predominantly, right?
Yeah.
The new wave of SaaS companies, as you rightly pointed out, are selling high ticket value, like 5-figure ACVs.
Yeah.
And they are putting very deliberate outbound focus and are far more sophisticated in the market in terms of the segmentation, in terms of the customers that they want to sell to. Like what you said, all money is not the same. Things like that, right?
True.
So yeah, that's a good thing. There's another question on related lines. With all this noise about the layoffs and edtech coming and inflating the market and so on and so forth, what have you taken away as, potentially it's a correction, potentially it's a bubble burst, potentially it's a recession, potentially it's a combination of all of that, or maybe it's just Friday evening, but what's your view on it?
My view is it's all consolidation. That's about it. Nothing else. So unfortunately, the way the whole VCP market is structured these days is it's designed to have a winner takes all kind of a end goal. And therefore, invariably there has to be consolidation, and that's what it is all about. And everything else that is happening at this point in time, especially because of EdTech, like you pointed out, Sridhar, is temporary. It's like, in fact, you do hear about layoffs, but do you ever hear about people not finding other jobs? It's like people are lapped up just as easily. It's like it's literally a restructuring and nothing else that's really going on out there. And that was bound to happen largely because, that's how it is. Eventually, you will always have either a monopoly or a duopoly in most of the sectors. That's how it works. That's how world has always worked, right? You will have somebody who has massive lion's share of the market anyways. And that's what this is all heading towards, and that's about it, and nothing else.
Oh, nice. So where do you hire people from?
Okay, so like I said, we're picky, we're choosy. So we try and hire from a lot of places.
You can't say HSR layout. You have to say other places.
Okay, so you're asking geographically.
No. I mean generally, like what are the places you hire people from?
So we tried hiring from competitors, honestly, but that did not really work out too well for us, simply because I don't think our competitors have the kind of quality of people that we are looking for. And
Wow, that's
like I
awesome.
mentioned, that quality is the most important thing for us. So we started hiring from different domains, not directly competitors, probably retailers. In fact, we have a lot of retailers on board who used to be similar journey as me, used to be retailer at some point in time, moved on to the other side of the table, and therefore are selling tech now, or making tech, or I don't know, whatever it is we're doing in the company, multiple functions. That's what one thing we do. And from a geographical perspective, Sridhar, I don't think there's any limitation. While we do, of course, have the alternate working from office thing, but that's not true for sales. Sales, of course, is all over the place. So sales is based out of wherever we need sales to be based out of. People are, in fact, we have 11 sales directors in the team now, and almost all of them are going to be in some or the other international geography by the end of 12 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's how we do it. So location doesn't matter, but what matters is people who feel the same way we do as a team, and who kind of have the same blood pumping. When they think that, okay, this is what we can do, this is where we can this is the peak we can kind of achieve together. They have places to go, and then there's no question of where did you come from. When you're all in Increffable, that's what you are.
That's wonderful. So how do you keep a sane head despite all of this, and with family? You have a kid, right?
I don't.
Okay.
I have family though.
Okay, so family should be keeping you enough busy. So how do you keep a sane head? It looks like a whole lot going on.
So again, like I said, we try and give each other a lot of space as well. While when we are at work, we are working together a lot. But then we also try and give each other a lot of space. We also understand that we're human beings at the end of the day, and we try and make sure that we're not really intruding into each other's personal spaces. At the same time, a lot of us are friends actually. So we know what's going on in our lives. So even if I'm like, we've had days when people have literally just felt low and said that I don't feel like working today. And people have said, okay, we know it happens. We all know it happens to all of us. It's just that for a lot of companies, it's a taboo to say that. You can't just say that you don't feel like working. You have to make up some story like I'm not feeling well or some story like that. It doesn't have to be like that here. And that's why we're friends as well. So we just kind of make sure that we're all giving space to each other, and we're respecting that we're all human beings and we all have lives beyond Incref. That's all it takes, I guess. So keeping a sane head is not that hard, honestly, when you have a supportive team, when you have people who are ready to kind of just jump in for each other if required, wherever required. That works.
That's totally awesome. If I were to start a sales career, I would have probably come and knocked at your door.
I think you should anyway. We are forever hiring leaders.
I know you are hiring, and so are we. So we have to.
Awesome.
We respect the space that you are in. Wonderful. Okay, so I think we kind of covered at least the questions that I had and I received from Akilan and Srivarada from Zendesk and Ravi Kaushik from, I forgot, he used to be at Stripe, now he's at some other place. Soundar Rajan, sorry, you raised your hand, I forgot to ask you. Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Rajan?
Hi, Kanika, it's so good to meet you.
Likewise, Rajan.
I have 3 questions. When I Googling, you are mainly related to the merchandising field, if I'm not wrong. Buyers kind of selling things.
That's one of the products. So we have multiple lines of products. One of the lines caters to merchandisers, yes.
I am basically staying from Coimbatore, Tirupur. It's a whole culture of a merchandising market. Some of my friends are asked for a startup idea. I think you are a good person for it. We are a background for engineer buddies. Right now, we don't know. When I started 6 months ago as SaaS, as like you, I don't have any experience came into SaaS, but I explored here. Most of my friends are going to get into SaaS. What they want to know is, we are from a merchandising background. So is the good market to start a startup in the textile related field? like a merchandise, you are in the correct person. So, and I am asking this question. And also, how would be the product market fit if they started it?
So I think we'll probably have to dig a little deeper into that, Rajan. I don't think there's a blanket yes or no answer to that, simply because you'll probably need to figure out what is it that you're doing in the specific segment. I mean, whether it's good to start something in a segment is like saying that, is it a good idea to start another edtech company? I don't know if there's a blanket yes or no answer or not. I mean, most of probably people will say no, but then what does edtech really mean in that sense? You probably might have a really good idea which nobody else has thought of, and you might even be doing an even better execution at that. So you don't know. So there's no blanket yes or no answer to that. Having said that, the market's going for sure for any sector for that matter. It's just it's about finding your niche. If you have something that you've found that doesn't exist already, then it's always a good idea. And if you have the experience to back up the execution, nothing like it, then I would say go for it.
Why I'm asking, because I literally saw my parents are working in the textile, because last 20-25 years, they are exporting to the US and other kind of market. There is no online source kind of thing here in mostly, but we are seeing the market will grow, will be a $2 billion kind of thing, they people told. But there is no SaaS in here. My friends are studied in computer kind of thing. I am little bit. So this tells me the idea. So I don't know who is the correct person. When I saw this, you are working this merchandising field, so I thought you are the correct person to ask, and you also have the same experience. So that's another question I am flagged. And I also started traveling 6 months ago. How do you travel and how do you segregate your work during traveling? You take a vacation or else traveling and work? Because I
Nice
6
question.
months I literally fed up because I'm in the Kashmir and I'm working because there is no internet. It's a little bit without taking a leave and working. How do you managing that? That's all my question.
So then one thing I started doing very early on in my career is when I realized that I really like traveling and that's what I want to do. Even when I was not traveling for work, I started negotiating my lifestyle with my wherever I was working, whoever my boss was, in such a way that I always got the freedom to work from anywhere. In fact, this whole concept of working from home, working from anywhere started very recently after COVID for most people, but for me it existed since forever. I've never really had an office. I've never really gone to an office because I've actually worked from anywhere since God knows forever. And it's about recognizing if that's what you want to do, then you actually start negotiating that as a part of your next role. In fact, what you would probably do is probably you would negotiate, let's say, to begin with, more vacation time. Rather than getting a better hike at your next movement, you'd probably say that, okay, I don't want a better hike. I'm okay with whatever you're giving me, but I probably want another week, another 2 weeks of vacation time. Or I would, like I said, we have an alternate work week from office. So we have people here who actually have a very interesting lifestyle. They don't live in Bangalore. So they come to Bangalore on the Monday morning when they are supposed to be in office. And on Friday morning, they stay in an Airbnb here. And on Friday morning, they check out and they come to office with a bag. And on Friday evening, they already have a flight to Goa. And then next 10 days, they're in Goa because it's like Friday night until next Monday morning. It's like 10 days. They can actually work out of Goa. And the next Monday morning, repeat. 4 nights, book Airbnb in Bangalore. So that's what people do. You kind of just build this into your routine. You build this into your work life. The only caveat being that you still need to get whatever you need to get done. So that needs to get done anyhow. So the moment you're able to give that confidence to whoever your manager is, whoever your company is, that I'll get it done irrespective of where I am. It doesn't matter if it's going to be 3 a.m. my time, and if you want me to get on a call with a customer at that point in time, I will. And the moment you kind of prove a point there, all's good. That's how it's worked for me. I have been sleepless in Seattle countless number of times, but that's okay. That's what I wanted to do. And that's how it is. I don't know if I answered your question the way you wanted to hear it or not, but that's a fact. I mean, it's just about prioritizing what you want to do.
Actually, I got the clarity. Thanks.
Okay. That's wonderful. I want to wrap up the session, but I want to have you answer one particular very, very interesting thing that I noticed in your life history. Okay. You talk about trimming down the number of things that you needed, not buying things for a year and stuff. Talk about that, and then we'll wrap up the session with that, because I think it's a fantastic life learning for a lot of us here.
So I'm a hardcore minimalist. I mean, I travel wherever I travel with a 7 kg backpack. That's what I have. And that's what life is for me. In fact, that includes everything that I need to be anywhere at any point in time, no matter for how long. So people tend to pack for the number of days they're traveling for somewhere. I don't really have a criteria. Ultimately, what I have is what I need for, I don't know, even a year. How does it matter? You're going to do your laundry anyway, right? And if you need to buy a new shirt, you will buy a new shirt anyway. So how does it matter how long you're packing for, how long you're going to go for? So that's what I started doing, Sridhar. In fact, I don't own too much stuff. I wear the exact same Increff t-shirt. I wear the same t-shirt to work. I wear the same bottoms I have. I do have 2 pairs of shoes. And that's about it. Life is simple. It just saves you a lot of time and energy and effort on a lot of things. And it's just easy. That's all. I have too many devices sometimes. I feel I have a laptop, I have a tab, I have a Kindle, and I have a phone. So I have 4 devices, and I have a Fitbit. So I have 5 devices at any point in time on me, and that is included in 7 kgs that I carry. So, but then that's about it. Eventually, when you realize that you don't need too much, I think you just kind of just stop buying stuff. That's what it is.
That's awesome. On that note of minimalism, thank you so much for sharing the journey, and hopefully people took away a few things, right?
This was all mine.
You're reachable on, you're reachable on Slack and of course on LinkedIn and stuff, I guess, right? I know for a fact that you're super approachable. So thanks for all the time. And thanks
for having me, Sridhar. It was a lot of fun, honestly. Love the questions, by the way. The moment you can get me to talk, anyway, I'm not stoppable. So I think everybody agrees with that by now.
You're like a dyed-in-the-wool salesperson. Dyed in the Increff t-shirt salesperson, I should say.
A salesperson, no matter what else you add to like embellish the before and after, but a salesperson, yes.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kanika. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for being a wonderful
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. You too.